We are live.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Dave Palmaville. I'm the Director of Public Health in Fresno County. And we wanted to talk some tonight about the Creek Fire recovery and specifically about the process for Phase 1 and Phase 2 cleanups. So if you're joining this webinar, it's likely that you've had your property either partially or fully destroyed. And I just want to tell you that we are very concerned about you and your property and your well-being. And on behalf of Fresno County, we're going to do everything that we can to try to make this process as helpful and as productive as possible, trying to get you back to a point of through the recovery process as best we can. We wanted to invite some people who we know are in interest in doing the Phase 1 and Phase 2 cleanup tonight. So we have a couple of presenters that are going to talk. I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and then Elisa Rada is going to talk about the overview of the cleanup process. She's worked on a couple of these in other parts of the state. And then we're going to have US EPA do a update on the Phase 1 cleanup process, where we're at, and where we're headed with that. And then we want to talk more about the debris removal. And so Elise is going to talk about the Phase 2 program that her team at Cal OES is working on putting together. And then we'll have an opportunity for some questions and answers. Unfortunately, we really wanted to be together and to do a public meeting in person. Unfortunately, we've had this other issue with COVID. We have cases that are increasing at this point, and so we thought it was prudent to do this meeting fully online. I want to assure anyone here on the webinar that if you have neighbors, relatives, friends that aren't as technically astute and may not be able to join this webinar or get their questions answered, we've got some phone numbers that we're going to put up that you can have people call, and we'll do one-on-one discussions with you. And if we need to meet, do either a in-person meeting, we'll make that happen just to get through this process as best we can. I want to talk a little bit about where we're at. I put this organizational chart up just to show you that the Creek Fire, it's been a significant disaster in Fresno County, and it's going to take some time to move through the recovery process. So we've set up a fairly complex structure to be able to deal with a lot of the different aspects of this, not only the response effort, but now as we move into the recovery effort, coordinating the local, state, and federal agencies, making sure that we've got our community partners informed, making sure that we're getting resources moving absolutely as best we can. And so I put this organizational chart up to be able to show you that, that we're going to be at this for a while. And just to give you an idea of the commitment that the county's making, one of our key people, our leaders in the county, is going to be the director of recovery. His name is John Thompson. You've heard him before at some of the public meetings. And Sim, if you can go over to John and put up his picture, and John can say hello to the group tonight. But John is going to be the director of recovery for this operation as we go forward. So John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is John Thompson. I'm the Assistant Director for Public Works and Planning, one of the Assistant Directors, and I've been fortunate enough to be placed in the role of Director of Recovery. Like Dave just stated, we're in it for the long haul. We're here to help you, whatever we can do to ensure that this transition back to normal life is as smooth as possible for you. And I'm sure you'll see me in future meetings.
So John's a great resource to have on this team, and I know he has high confidence with Supervisor Magsig's office and with the County Administrative Officer Jean Rousseau and so forth. I also wanted to introduce from my team Sukhdeep Sidhu, and we call him Deep. And if we can have Deep highlighted for a moment, and if Deep can introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Deep Sidhu. I'm with Department of Public Health, Environmental Health Division. We have our environmental health team to assist all the mountain community that has been impacted by the Creek Fire. We are able to help you with any questions you have with phase 1 and phase 2 cleanup and process of taking the debris to AADS. So we're here for you for a long haul. You could reach us anytime through our county website, Environmental Health Division. Thank you.
Thanks, Deep. And Deep's a great resource for us as well. He's worked in the solid waste program here in Fresno County for a number of years, and he's got a great team that's going to be able to help move through the process. You know, we've established a number of different task forces that are actively working. We want to talk mostly tonight about the debris management task force, but I also want you to know that our building and planning department is working on streamlining the rebuilding process. We've got another task force that's focused on the watershed, the significant damage that's been done to the physical environment, and trying to evaluate both the impacts, but also the longer term consequences that may be problematic for us as we go forward. And then we have a winter storm readiness work group that's been led by some from my team and the Sheriff's Office. Captain Padilla with the Sheriff's Office and Dan Lynch from my team are working on winter storm readiness. And their whole purpose is to make sure that when we have significant storm events that are coming in, we're doing a good job of alerting the community of what potential hazards may exist with regard to landslides or flooding events that may occur as a result of the burn scar area. We also have a Health and Human Services Task Force, and Delfino Neri, our Director of Social Services, is the lead of that work group. He and his team are making sure that we're working closely with FEMA to address some of the housing needs that people have and trying to get some resources to them. And then we also have a cost recovery team that's trying to make sure that we end up managing the fiscal responsibilities at the county, state, and federal level effectively. So tonight we're going to talk some about the debris management piece of this, and I just want to let you know that our website, Fresno County Recovers, that if you hit any of the county websites, you'll see in the header of the website a link to the Fresno County Recovers site. We're trying to put absolutely as much information up there that you'll get tonight, but as we go forward, there's a lot of information that's available, and I want to walk through some of that a little bit with you. And then, as I've said, the telephone number 600-INFO is the number that we've dedicated for this incident. So if you have questions, you can't reach us by the internet or by email, the phone number is there, and actually Deep's team will try to answer any of the deep debris questions that people have actually in person on phone if that's what's needed. This is what the website looks like, and we're going to be talking about debris removal tonight, and so there's a button there that focuses on just debris removal. And there's a fairly, it's a lot of words, but we're trying to make as much information available to the community as possible. This page lays out the narrative of both the phase 1 and the phase 2 cleanup programs that'll be talked about tonight. I wanted to indicate that there is a link here right at the very top that is if you click on it, it's a map. It's a GIS map that you can navigate to your property just to make sure that we've got your property on the list. And when we had structures that were destroyed, either partially or fully destroyed, we've cross-referenced that to the actual parcel number. And so there's information that you can learn about your individual parcel by clicking on it, but also we want you to go up there and validate that you see your parcel. If your property had partial or complete property destruction, then we want to be sure that we've got it on our inventory. And so you can go to that website and validate that. If you can't navigate the website, again, you can call that 600-INFO number and one of our team can help you with that. But we're trying to make as much information available, not only to the agencies that are on the phone tonight, but also to the public as timely as we can. And I will tell you that we have one of our outstanding questions that we're not going to be able to answer tonight is the issue with regard to the properties that are actually on Forest Service land. I know there's been a lot of concern about whether the phase 1 and phase 2 cleanups are occurring on those properties. We can tell you for certain that the phase 1 cleanups are being done on Forest Service land. What we've not been able to commit to at this point is that the phase 2 cleanups are going to occur the same way that they are outside of the Forest Service land. So unfortunately, we don't have an update for you on that tonight, but we wanted to have this webinar anyways because there's a lot of parcels that are outside of the Forest Service property that need to get cleaned up. Before I move on, Sim, can you just mention on the call how people can put in a question?
So everyone that's on the call should have a Q&A function. You can type in your responses, even if you're signed in anonymously, you can still type in your questions. On the top right-hand corner or the bottom left-hand corner, you should see a comment box. In that, you can provide any comments, questions, or feedback.
Thanks, Sim. And if we'll try to answer the questions if you type them in tonight, and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can as we go through the workshop.
And Dave, just to make note, we are streaming this to Facebook as well. So if anyone is streaming and watching on Facebook, you guys can leave your comments on Facebook, and we'll try to address those as well.
Great, thank you, Sim. Appreciate that extra hint there. So at this point, I wanted to have Elisa Rada. She's with the California Office of Emergency Services, and she's been part of our team here locally for the last couple of weeks. She's been up on the hill looking at some of your properties, and she's been coordinating the overall phase 1 and phase 2 effort, and she's had some experience with this at other sites, and so I wanted her to do a brief introduction. Elise?
Hi there, thank you for that, Dave. And sorry I'm having technical difficulties with the videos. But I, like Dave said, am with the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. I've been with the agency for 4 years, and I've spent about 3 of those cleaning up fire debris with a lot of my team. And I'm so grateful to be here. Thanks for everybody taking the time to join this call, and to your county for setting it up. Today I'm going to talk about you'll probably hear it under 3 names, the Consolidated Debris Removal Program or the Private Property Debris Removal Program. Those are synonymous. And what it is basically is the government, all the way from county to state to federal, they've authorized funding to help remove the hazards that remain from these from the burned structures, from the destruction here, from the creek fire. And so with that, I just wanted to briefly introduce that it's a 2-phase program. So you may already have been hearing about phase 1 and phase 2. I have our partners from US EPA on the line to discuss phase 1. They're the agency that's completing that process here in Fresno County and also Madera County as a result of the creek fire. So initially, I'm going to turn it over to Kenneth with the US EPA.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. And as I said, my name is Ken Rame. I'm the branch director for the phase 1 process of the creek fire. I'm here to help people recover from this disaster to the best of the ability. First, I'd like to talk about the strategy. That, people are probably asking, why is some homes being done and not others or not mine? We focused our efforts first on the higher elevation structures, since we are dealing with a timeline with weather and snow. We wanted to make sure that we got the area that's going to probably receive the first snows first. So we've been focusing around Big Creek and Shaver Lake. That being said, I can give you an update on where we're at with the numbers. If you go to the next slide, please.
Yep, give me 1 second here. I lost it. There it is.
So we had 492 parcels total in Fresno County when we began. Out of the 492, we've completed 283, so we're about 60% complete. Those are this morning's numbers. So they've probably increased. We've been looking at maybe a 5% increase per day on average. That being said, one of the things I'd like to say that can help us out if your property hasn't been done is some of the properties are running into issues with access, lock gates, things of that nature. If you guys do have a lock gate and you don't mind dummy locking the lock and allowing our crews to come in, do the phase one, we'll lock the gate on our way out. If you're concerned with leaving your gates unsecured, we're trying to work with people the best we can in terms of scheduling. It's pretty difficult. It's difficult to pick up crews and equipment and move them on short notice, and it's not that efficient. So one of the things we're asking people to do is call in to the EPA hotline. And if we go to the next slide, we have the number there. You can talk to the hotline folks. If you have a combination lock on your gate, you can give them the combination to your lock or tell them that you're going to dummy lock it, and we'll put that property back on our list. If we've already been there and removed it because of access, we'll put that property back on our list to go out and complete the phase one. Also, you can monitor our progress by visiting the website that's listed here, www.epa.gov/2020 CAL FIRE response. And I don't know if you guys can see the photos, but I've seen a lot of the photos of the disaster-stricken area, a lot of the burnt down structures. This picture was taken up at Shaver Lake and probably one of the lakes further north, higher elevation than that. I can't remember the name of it. But it's a very beautiful area, and I wanted to end on a positive note. This is a very beautiful area, very fortunate to live here. And if there's anything I can do, please don't hesitate to ask and give us a call. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Kenneth. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Ken and US EPA and all the work that they're doing. But go ahead, Elise.
Hey, Kenneth, before you jump off, I don't believe we let people know what phase one actually entails. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of things you're looking for and removing and maybe marking? And then we'll switch back to me for phase two.
Sure. So phase one involves removing a hazardous waste. We're finding a lot of homes have, paints, typical things in their garage, pesticides, like I said, paints, fertilizers, things of that nature, cleaning solvents, some acetylene cylinders. Some of the folks have, hobbies that involve auto repair, so we're finding drums of waste oils, things like that.
Okay, great. So again, this is Elisa Rada, and I'm going to be talking about what phase two involves, and that's the removal of that structural ash and debris and vehicles after phase one is complete. So why we have our government contractors out there working right now under the authority list given to them by your county's local health emergency. And that's why you didn't have to sign one of those right of entries for phase one to be completed. That's in the best interest of the environment and the best interest of the public. So for phase two, with the government program, it's going to require that right of entry document we keep talking about, or ROE. And what I want to start with is that with the government's debris removal program, there's no out-of-pocket cost to a homeowner. It does involve insurance policies, and if you don't happen to have a homeowner's insurance policy, then there is no cost. And I'll come back to insurance because I know there's going to be questions on that. But what happens after you submit that right of entry form is it gets processed through the county and provided over to the state, and we start tracking and start issuing our government contractors out to the sites where we have received a right of entry form. What it'll start with is a site assessment. We'll have an environmental consultant out on your particular parcel, mapping out the parcel, photographing what's present, and basically drawing a schematic of everything they see. After that, there's an asbestos assessment that's completed by a certified asbestos, oh my gosh, tongue twisters, certified asbestos consultant will complete this portion, and they'll conduct an asbestos survey. They'll remove any kind of bulky visible asbestos, and they'll take samples of anything that's questionable. And then if any asbestos comes back present from that lab testing, all of this is removed by an asbestos removal contractor. And then after we've mitigated all of those hazards, comes the physical debris removal. So with debris removal, we're going to be using heavy equipment, skid steers, excavators, and we have water tenders on site to keep the dust down, because turning all that up to remove it can tend to, aerosolize it. I don't know if that's the best word. And so we keep water trucks on all of our sites where we're working to minimize that amount of stuff that's in the air. And with that, there's also air monitoring that's done at each site where we're removing, where we're actually physically working on debris removal. There are also air monitors set up all along the haul route between that site and the ultimate landfill that it's going to be disposed at. So at all times, we're making sure that all of that ash and debris that we're speaking about that's so hazardous is contained to the best extent possible and monitored to make sure that the efforts we have in place are actually working. So when we are on your site for debris removal, actually the homeowners listed on that right of entry form or a designated point of contact, that person will get a call based kind of 24 to 48 hours before debris removal actually starts on their property. And this will enable that homeowner to talk to that crew who's doing the work and let them know about any specifics. At this point, we'll already know about locked gates and potential access issues, but things you want us to know about your property. It's helpful in that ROE if you tell us where there's a septic tank or anything like that. But this phone call will basically enable that homeowner to talk to the contractors that are going to be on their site. And speaking of being on site, homeowners are allowed to be there during the debris removal process, but an exclusion zone will be set up, and the owner can stay in that area. That way you're away from all the equipment, the hazards, everything that we're working on, just to keep you safe. But if you were curious, wanted to be present, that is an option. And then during that phase is when all the structural ash and debris is removed. So any of your buildings, outbuildings, vehicles. We'll also remove any hazardous trees. And at this time, it's only the removal of hazard trees that are hazardous to the crews performing the work or in danger of falling in the site while they're working. Those will be removed for safety. And then in addition to debris, as of the campfire a couple years ago, we now have a program that incorporates the removal of dead or dying trees. So that's something that you can indicate on your ROE as well. And we don't just willy-nilly remove trees. We have an arborist come out, and they need to be deemed dead or dying within the next 5 years. And we'll remove kind of along the rights of ways, or again, hazardous to the crews performing the work. So after all that ash and debris is gone, we'll do soil sampling. And samples of the soil are pulled from everywhere there was debris removed. The results of that can take, it depends on the lab, but sometimes 7 to 10 days. And what those soil samples are compared against are background levels that are done prior to debris removal. These background levels tell us what's already naturally occurring in the soil in areas that weren't impacted by the incident and the hazards produced by the fire and ash and debris. If the soil samples come back high, sorry, I should have started with, prior to the soil samples, when we remove your ash and debris, there's also going to be the removal of 3 to 6 inches of soil. And then underlying areas will be tested for any kind of heavy metals. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't think come after a fire that are hazardous, but it's all kinds of arsenic and cadmium, mercury, copper, all kinds of that stuff that we're trying to get rid of. So with if that soil sample comes back higher than the previously established background level, then we'll scrape another 3 to 6 inches of dirt from that area. And if that happens to come back high, there's another process in place. We don't continuously scrape 3 to 6 inches until it's clear. We'd leave you with the swimming pool hole if we did that. There's another, like a boring method that we test to see what's really going on that particular property. And likely every property will be different. After the soil samples come back clear, we will implement erosion control measures. They're placed in areas identified by an engineer, and for mitigation purposes, this is included in the program. However, if families are going to rebuild sooner than later, there's an option to waive this, because rebuilding is just going to undo the erosion control anyway with grading and whatnot. Where am I? So for safety, I already talked about how we have air monitors everywhere. Our crews are trained. They're hazardous waste emergency operations trained. If you hear that acronym, HAZWOPER. Our trucks are burrito wrapped. All the debris is wetted. The trucks are burrito wrapped, and all of the haul route is monitored. So we really do. We're not trying to make a bad situation worse. We're limiting any extra exposure from the ash and debris that's already there. So with that, I'm going to jump into insurance for a second. With the fact that we will collect homeowners insurance from properties that did have homeowners insurance, we're not taking that full amount. I shouldn't say taking, that's misleading. We won't collect that full amount. What we're looking for in an insurance policy is whether or not that policy came with a debris clause. So let's say your clause is like 15 grand for debris. So all of your structural replacement, your personal possessions, that is all yours, so that we can make you whole and rebuild and get back to, some set of normalcy. So with that debris amount, if we stick with that $15,000 number, that is the max amount that the state is going to collect if you sign up for the PPDR ROE program. That amount could also be less than $15,000. If you had kind of other ash and debris, if you had to have sorry, I should have said this before, we don't remove septic tanks, but I can go into that. So if you had to remove something like a septic tank or like a chicken coop or any other debris that's on your property that would qualify to use that $15,000 towards, let's say you spent $5,000 cleaning up other things that were maybe left behind by phase 2, you would keep those receipts and the state would only collect the difference. So at that point, the only amount owed to the state would be $10,000 if you save that $5,000 receipt from the cleanup that you did. So the idea, again, is to have no out-of-pocket cost to the homeowner. So the homeowner that signs up for the ROE program, you're not going to see a bill. Your county and the government will work with the insurance company to collect that money directly, and that's why insurance information is a requirement of that right of entry form. One thing to note is that right of entry form, it's not signing away any of your rights as a homeowner. It's just allowing the government and its contractors to enter your property. So a lot of people are kind of weary about signing it, but really you're just giving the authority to remove the hazards. You're involved and informed of almost every step of the way. The only thing we don't contact a homeowner ahead of time is for that initial site assessment and that initial asbestos assessment. But from the debris removal phase pretty much on through the end, you'll be in the know. And I just realized I didn't say what happened after soil sampling. So to get that parcel cleared and returned back to you for rebuilding purposes, the state will have cleared all the hazards, make sure all the testing comes back clear, and then we'll give all of that information over to the county environmental health office. Once they concur with all of the work that we've done and the test results and whatnot, when they sign off on it, that's basically what signifies that you as a homeowner have a certified clear property and it's safe for you and your family to rebuild, to play, to live the rest of your life at that time. And I feel like I've said a lot, so thank you for listening to me. A little bit about the ROE itself. I know it's a lengthy document. It's really important to read through it, be comfortable with what you're signing. This one doesn't have initials. Another essential part is to make sure your property address and that APN number is at the bottom of every page, because if something gets separated or something's missing, we can sort that paper. I mean, I reattach it back with the packet that it belongs to. So what's not often clarified is that additional pages can be added. So if there's anything that you want to tell us about your property, if you have, like a pet cemetery where you've buried your family pets for years and years and you don't want us to disturb that with our heavy equipment, let us know where it is. We're going to avoid anything that's going to make the situation any worse than it already is. So little things like that. Another thing we try to do is, if I understand most of the owners in this area have been back to sift through their items and trying to look for anything that was salvageable, but if maybe you knew that you kept your jewelry box in the back corner of your bedroom and you weren't able to find anything, if you let us know, like through that ROE, or if you drew us a little schematic, we'll spend a short amount of time seeing what we can find in that area before we go in through with heavy equipment. So if there's a possibility of something that we can return back to you as the owner, that's our goal. We've had some success stories finding like Purple Hearts and sorry, I'm looking to my coworkers. We've definitely had success stories in finding valuable things. It's not always the case, but if something's near and dear to you, we want to spend that extra time to try to find it for you. Another thing that's important to provide along with your ROE, I understand many people have already turned one in, so we might be reaching back to you for this documentation that I'm about to mention. When we talk about insurance, it's really great that you're including all the necessary information on the right of entry form, but if you could also provide the county with a copy of that declarations page from your policy. And then specifically on that declarations page, we need to make sure that what you're providing covered the time of the fire. So a lot of policies change like mid-year, end of the year. So we want to make sure that you're submitting the copy of the insurance documentation that you had in place at the time of the fire. So outside of things like that, any special things you want us to know about your property so we can treat it with the utmost care, we want to know those things. And if you forget something after you get that 24 to 48 hour heads up, you'll have a contact point at that time with that task force lead on that property, and you can let us know whatever there is that we can help with. And I'm going to take a pause and drink water for a second and take a look at my coworkers and make sure I didn't miss anything, and then I'll be back in just 1 second. All right. So thank you for listening to me ramble on. I am going to turn this back over to the county and see how we can help next.
Great. Thanks, Elise. Really appreciate that. I wanted to put this page, it's just a continuation page of the county website, and it has the location where you can click there and that we have a frequently asked questions about right of entry forms. We have 3 different ways that you can submit the form to us. There's a integrated online Adobe version that has a signature verification process, or you can do a fillable Word document or a fillable PDF document. So those are available. We've already collected over 100 rights of entry. Our goal is to move over the next 2 weeks as aggressively as we can to collect up as many rights of entry. The reason we want to do that is because when Cal OES gets their contractor lined up and in place, we want to be sure that we've got the property owners ready and prepared to be able to have those contractors mobilized as quickly as possible. So it's really important that if your intention is to utilize this program, is to get that right of entry into us as best you can. And if something isn't complete, or as Elise said, if we have to follow up with you to get some additional documentation, no worries, we'll reach out to you and make sure that we get a complete set of documents for you to work with. We got a couple of questions, and I'll go ahead and ask a couple of them, and then Sim, if you've gotten any from your side, chime in as well. But we had one question: how do I know if the phase 1 cleanup has been completed? So Ken, can you answer that question?
Sure. So we have a database that we share information with the county it's documented in the database that your property has been complete, and we also post a sign at the entrance of your property showing that EPA has been there and that your property was complete. So if you have any questions, you can either contact the hotline that was on the slide before, or you can contact the county. They have the information on the completed parcels as well.
And we have a link to that, to the page that you're updating every day, Ken, on our website, so people can click on that and move to that site as well, or they can call our office. We had another question about if the insurance company has already paid me for my debris removal, who do I pay and when? Elise, can you answer that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that debris clause amount, you're going to want to hold on to that. Don't spend it. Don't use it on your rebuild. And I mean, that's if you needed to use it and could replace it, that's fine. But really, ideally, you want to not touch that debris clause amount, because on an operation of this size, I'm not sure when we would get around to collecting. I can take that back, but I could tell you that on the campfire where we were dealing with 18,000 properties, sometimes it was like a year before we got around to collecting that. So it just depends on the staffing and the magnitude of the disaster. So I will get specifics on that, but I am glad that was asked because it's very important for you to retain that insurance amount.
And I think you covered this, Elise, but there was a question about vehicles and how are vehicles dealt with during the cleanup?
Another great question. Vehicles are included in the phase 2 removal. So any vehicle that's on private property is going to get kind of swept up with the rest of the debris. We will verify the VINs with those. That's a process I'll work with the county on filling out the proper DMV forms and whatnot. But the vehicles that are burned in on site, they will be removed, some recycled depending on like the metal and where it was found and whatnot. But there's a VIN verification process so that DMV is aware of what we've uncovered on that property.
So they would be included as part of the cleanup?
Correct.
And then we had another question about the timelines. When is it that we know that phase 1 is underway, but when can property owners anticipate that the phase 2 cleanups would be started, and how long will that process take?
Another great question. I forgot to mention when I was talking about that right of entry form that the deadline for that right of entry form is December 15th. So keep that date in mind while you're, reading through, making an informed decision. Right now, our state agency called Cal Recycle, they've got contracts out to bid right now for that environmental consultant and that prime contractor to do the ash and debris removal. Those are set to come back. I think the bid is going to be awarded sometime towards the end of November. And then our anticipated cruise on the ground date is December 1st. And then with that, I wanted to manage another expectation that some of you that maybe were the first set of ROEs to come in, you may not be one of the first properties cleared. So I know the county's provided a lot of information to us about their critical concern areas. We know about sensitive receptors, like people who are living in their still standing home next to debris, next to a hospital, next to a school, if I didn't mention that. So we really initially have to target our crews to areas where we've got clusters of rights of entry, because that demobilization and remobilization is cost prohibitive to to maintaining this, you know, with the government funds and whatnot. So we really do try to hit clusters. That said, we will also just go where we have an ROE, if depending on how many we've got by the time crews start. But that's another reason why we've worked with the county to identify those critical concern areas, so we can have the best shot of starting there.
We had another question about property insurance, and if my property was either uninsured or underinsured, can they still participate in phase 2?
You can absolutely participate in phase 2. If you are not insured, there is no cost. And underinsured, I'm not sure if that applies to like a rebuild cost or a make you whole cost, but if there wasn't a debris clause, I feel like this might be one of those one-offs where we need to work with the homeowner and really understand their policy. So I'm not sure how to answer that on this call particularly, but I will bring that back, and then I'll work with your county team too, so we can answer that moving forward.
Thank you. Sim, were there other questions that came in?
I'm monitoring the stuff. It doesn't look like any came in through here. I know a lot of folks typically catch a lot of these briefings and so forth on Facebook. If any of you watching do have comments or questions, just put them on there and we'll address them directly back to you, and probably in a follow-up meeting as well.
And that can be even after the conclusion of the webinar.
Yes.
So Dave, this is John. I do have one question from a property owner that Elise can probably handle. Elise, this is from a property owner. We would like to take advantage of the FEMA Phase 2, but we want to keep our concrete foundation. Will we be able to do this?
You will not. I'm glad someone asked that. So the reason we take concrete foundations, there's actually like multiple reasons. One, it's not generally at the intensity and length of time exposed to heat that the homes are exposed to. The foundations are often compromised. Hold on, let me figure out how to word that. The short answer is no. The phase 2 program, the government sponsored program, will remove your foundation. That's one, because of the structural soundness, and two, because we would need to, anything that may have leached through that concrete down into the dirt and soil, the whole intent is to have removed the environmental and health hazards. So without being able to remove that foundation and test underneath it, we can't guarantee that your site is free of all of those contaminants. So if it's very important for you to keep your foundation, you would need to clean up with a private contractor. And again, just for your safety, like there's no guarantee that your foundation will be structurally sound, so you'd want to hire somebody to check that for you as well. But in this government program, it will be removed.
Any other questions that came in? Any other comments that any other panelists want to make at this point before we wrap up?
Dave, I have one other question too. Elise has already answered this for me, but there may be more participants that may be thinking about doing this. We had one question of our house was destroyed. We do not want to rebuild. However, our neighbor would like to buy this property. This is the first of probably several coming up. So what is the process on that for those type of folks?
Sure. So figure out how to word it. What happens if it's a property owner is well within their right to sell their property, and no one's going to stop them. Where it requires a little bit more, detail and more paperwork is that original homeowner. Let's say I forgot you already said if they did or did not want to apply for the program. Let's say they did. If they had submitted an ROE and then decided that they wanted to sell their property prior to debris removal actually happening, that is fine. There's a separate document that's not been updated since the campfire, but it'll be an affidavit to where that property owner, it's the purchaser, I should say. The purchaser, it protects the purchaser. Oh my gosh, let me start over. Yes, you can sell your property. Warn the original owner at the time of the fire if there was an insurance policy and there was a debris clause. County, I'll work with you to get you a more updated copy of an affidavit. So what that affidavit is going to do is protect the purchaser by requiring the original owner from the time of the fire to provide their insurance proceeds, again, just that debris clause amount, back to the government for this cleanup process. And then simultaneous to that, the new owner would need to submit a right of entry form. And there's some more nuances to that, but that affidavit form, I haven't seen it updated since the campfire. I imagine that it's going to just need some updating for 2020, and I'll get a copy of that to the county so that we can properly message that.
Thank you. Great question.
Dave,
John,
I got
have any
something.
more?
Yeah, Dave, I got something. If any of the property owners impacted by the creek fire don't have access to technology and they don't have a way to download or print out the right of entry form, you could contact our office, 600-3271. We could mail you a copy to the address provided. And also, if you want to come to our office and complete this form, you could call our office ahead if you like. We will provide you a copy. That way you could complete the copy at our office and submit it to our office. Thank you.
That's a great help, Deep. Thank you for reminding everybody about that. And we'll do absolutely our best to make sure that if people don't have access to the internet, if you can let them know, have them make contact with us, we'll do our best to make sure that the forms get filled out. I think our overall intent at the county is to get these cleanups done as completely as we can. We want to encourage participation in the phase 2 program, and we want property owners to make really good decisions and be well informed about this. There are some circumstances where property owners may choose to go ahead and do cleanups privately, and we'll support that, and that may be the right decision for some property owners. But for others, we want you to really consider taking advantage of this program. As Elise stated, there's no out-of-pocket from the property owners. There is the balancing of the settlement of the insurance claim just to make sure that whatever proceeds were intended for debris removal get reimbursed to the contractor. The reason that we are very much in favor of really looking at this program is the cost of cleanup can oftentimes far exceed the coverage in the insurance policy. And we also know that a number of people were uninsured, and this is a means to be able to get at least the debris removal done. So we really want to encourage you to look at this. I know that we have a lot of information on the website. If you need for our staff to walk you through this or to provide any additional information, we'll do it. I apologize that we can't have this meeting in person, but we will do our best to continue to communicate, and we'll continue to have these types of meetings as we go forward, and hopefully we can have some in-person meetings as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap things up for tonight. If you have questions, you can post them in Facebook. If that's the way that you were able to see this, or post questions in the meeting, we'll do the best we can to answer them. Or you can call our office using the 600 info number, and we'll do our best to be able to answer questions. But again, we want to do everything we can to help you through this process. And please keep in touch with us, and we'll do everything we can. And I just want to thank again the panel for sticking around tonight and making sure that we were able to provide this information to the community. So thank you all, and have a good evening.